Die with your boots on. That's essentially what my grandfather did. Maybe yours too. Family members used to speak of my grandfather's work ethic with regret. Everybody said Grandpa missed out on it. Many still feel this way. However, I don't. Not anymore. You see, my grandfather lived and passed away before I even understood, much less thought about, the concept of retirement. However, as someone today who studies and counsels retirees, my view on my grandfather's approach to life is quite different. You see, my grandfather never seemed to regret anything, so why were we feeling sorry for him? He lived a life that seemed to show great purpose and meaning, so it never occurred to him to change his lifestyle because he reached a certain designated age. So he kept working. And for him, this was hard work. Dirty, sweaty, hard work. So why did he do it if he didn't have to? It gave him a sense of fulfillment. He loved growing. He loved creating. He loved building. He loved challenging himself. He loved being able to financially provide for himself, his family, friends, causes he liked to support. Now, my grandfather enjoyed being happy and having a good time as much as anyone. However, he did not seek out moments of pleasure or joy, but more so to be industrious, to be charitable, to make a difference. I share his example today because it's not only timeless, but it's also timely for where we are as a society. Because there is a growing trend among us that will force many people to have to work longer in order to provide for themselves and their families. This will cause all of us to reflect on how we define living an abundant life as a society and as individuals. So, where did this all start? The stats are staggering. 3 out of 4 Americans don't feel they have enough money for retirement. Many middle Americans in the middle class don't feel like they're going to have enough money to maintain their current lifestyle in retirement. 30% of those 55 and over don't have enough saved they don't have a retirement account or a pension. Those 55 to 64 with retirement savings have an average savings of $104,000. Now, this didn't just start on the precipice of retirement. Many people have trouble with living paycheck to paycheck, and so they don't have enough to be able to sock away for retirement. And in that case, we see people faced with a $400 emergency, 40% of Americans would have to take out a loan or sell something in order to pay for it or face default. Furthermore, the average American has only about 3 weeks of reserves, funds saved up to pay for an emergency. Even the wealthiest in our society, they worry, will I have enough? Because for them, many times bigger wallets lead to bigger lifestyles, which can be difficult to maintain over 30 years when hit with inflation, taxes, market ups and downs, and no paycheck. And that can make a dent on someone's nest egg and legacy assets they plan to leave for their children and for charities. So what happened? Well, we're all living longer. We're not saving as much. Healthcare costs are going up faster than average costs, and our systems have failed to keep up. So where did this all begin? Well, German Chancellor Bismarck started the first retirement security program for older age people back in 1881. And he did this not out of an altruistic interest in helping the plight of the working class, but more so to thwart a political opponent. So it was more of a program that wasn't set up to cost very much. He set up his benefits to pay out after average life expectancy. Fast forward 50 years, and then US, Europe, and other advanced economies come on board with our programs. Ours was Social Security, started in 1935 under President Roosevelt. And we did something similar. Average life expectancy was age 61. We started our benefits to pay out at 65. Again, not an expensive program. But then, as time went on, we had some really great advances in medical procedures and in medicines, which caused people to be able to live longer. So the good news is people are living longer, but the bad news is people are living longer. So now we find ourselves with a system that was built to be sustainable for people who were dying in their 60s, that now has a larger population coming through it that's living into their 70s, 80s, and beyond. So instead of funding 2 to 3 years of retirement, it's now funding 2 to 3 decades. So it makes it a little challenging. But Social Security, it's important to note that it was not meant to provide all of our retirement income. It also wasn't meant to be an investment tool. It was meant to be something for elderly workers to make sure that they did not go poor in retirement. But even still, Social Security is so important to Americans that it's considered one of the 3 legs of the 3-legged stool of retirement income, which is well known in my circles. The other 2 legs happen to be retirement plan savings you would glean from working, and also personal savings, anything you're able to come up with on your own. So that worked very well for a time. People would work very long, for many years for a company, then they would retire, they would collect Social Security checks, they would collect pensions from their employers, and they would enjoy whatever else they had. But unfortunately, many people would agree that that stool is now lopsided or broken, causing many Americans to question, when can I retire? Will I have enough? And so that brought the government to address that question by establishing a commission back in 2016 to address the question of how can we increase retirement and emergency fund savings. And they came up with several reforms they wanted to focus on, and we're going to talk about the top 2. Which one is that they want to be able to give more employees access to retirement plans. Back in late 1800s, early 1900s, pensions came about, and they provided employees of large companies with the ability to collect paychecks in their senior years that basically were defined benefits, guaranteed. And so they had the luxury of not having to think very much about retirement planning. So that was really nice, and that went on until about 1978, and then 401k plans came on the scene. And 401k plans essentially put the employee in the driver's seat. They were now in control of, 1, deciding, should I start engaging and participating in this program? And number 1, I'll be managing my own assets. How do I do that? So whether they were ready or not, they were responsible. Well, the 401k plan was originally designed to supplement pensions. However, employers jumped on it and they were very excited. They saw it as a great way to actually displace pensions as opposed to supplementing them. So thereby saving companies costs and passing on the risk and the responsibility of saving to the employee. Now, even a bigger concern than that is the fact that many businesses or companies don't have any retirement plan savings at all. Although North Carolina is not one of them, 3 states and 8 more with plans underway have jumped on board to provide or actually to require companies that don't have retirement plans through their companies to join or to be part of an individual retirement account. Now, this is far from an optimal solution. It's great that they're being proactive about this. However, imagine 50 states with 50 different plans. It could be quite confusing. Imagine if you moved a couple of times. So that's not exactly optimal. What would be even better is a national program that was set up with some minimal coverage requirements. And that has been discussed, but it's not really far down the road yet. And then with modernizing Social Security, that's something I think we've all heard about. It's important. It's talked about, but it's a bit of a political football because any legislator that picks it up knows that he's going to or she's going to offend a large part of the population because everyone feels like, I did my part, I paid in, so why isn't the government doing their part and paying me my full benefits? So small changes have been made to date. We have seen The full retirement age shift from age 65 to age 66 and 67 for younger parts of the population, and we've seen the amount of a person's income being taxed on Social Security increase. However, much more needs to be done. Otherwise, if left in place as it is, the surplus that we now have for Social Security will be depleted in 2034, and 79% of the benefits paid today will be paid out at that time. So these are some of the things that the government's thinking about and that they're going to have to tackle. So that's on the employer front, on the government front, but it turns out the employer has a lot of concerns that are affecting them as well with this financial or saving shortfall that we're experiencing. It turns out that employees are not able to compartmentalize and leave their financial woes at the door when they come into work every day. There's Landon in logistics, the millennial who came in tired Monday morning because he worked a weekend side gig as a wedding photographer to pay off the student loans he has. And then there's Amy in accounting, the Gen Xer, who had to take off for a long lunch because she has to take her mom to the doctor and then rush home at night to feed the family. And then there's Sam, who has been with the company a long time, a boomer in sales, and she's found herself wondering, 30 years of retirement. When can I retire? Will I have enough? So it turns out that employees are suffering from this, and it's causing when they're surveyed, 50% of employees say it's causing their productivity to decrease. And then when HR professionals are surveyed, 83% of them are saying that they're seeing it hit the bottom line as well, which has led 86% of companies to develop financial wellness programs. Financial wellness programs were developed to educate and encourage employees to build up their retirement savings. The one critical component is that we don't have a universal definition for financial wellness programs. So the offerings and the effectiveness vary greatly. But if we can get it right and we can have a robust financial wellness program, we stand to be able to increase retention, health, and productivity. So a good financial wellness program tied to measurable success criteria has a lot of potential. And then that leaves us, the individual. So we've got the government, we've got the employer, and then us as the individual. What can we do? Turns out a lot. Well, I'm a big advocate for coming up with personal strategies because there's a lot that can be done for an individual, and everyone's situation is unique. But we can get very far down the road just by looking at some important concepts that are critical to every age and stage. So number one, know your why and align with it. Your why is your purpose. It's what wakes you up in the morning. It's your drive. You want to be sure that you have your top prioritized goals aligned with that why, and then your expenses should be aligned with those goals. So, it's a lot of people have trouble with this. But there are some really great movements on the internet that you can research that, like frugal living and FIRE, financial independence, retire early. These are people who have actually found a way to empower themselves through savings. They find themselves convicted through the sacrifices that they're making to live their life differently. Instead of keeping up with the Joneses, they want to surpass the Joneses in their own way. Second, focus on what you can control. Now, the two biggest enemies to retirement planning, in my opinion, are procrastination and fear. So we want to get rid of those, and the best way to do that is to keep ourselves from being overwhelmed. So separate out what's not controllable or you have less influence on, which are basically your market returns or tax policy, and try not to think about those as much and hone in on what you can control. So your spending, your savings, what you're invested in can go a long way to keep you from being overwhelmed. 3, recognize that good and bad decisions build. It's important to realize that the decisions you make today will be more impactful to your financial situation than decisions made 5 years from now. There are concepts called time value of money and compounding that people are very surprised to see when you put it to paper, just how how critical it can be if you start saving, pay yourself first, start saving money to a retirement account today and be judicious about it as you go along. Instead of waiting 5 years, you have to save so much more. And on the flip side with expenses, if you can push off expenses like the purchase of a car, push it off a couple of years, it can also have a dramatic impact on your financial plan. So pull forward savings opportunities, push out large spending purchases. And then stay engaged and active. Basically, to be successful in retirement, you need to have 3 things: a sound mind, physical strength, and financial stability. Now, the interesting part of this is how interconnected they are. Because if you see one start to falter, it usually has a negative impact on the other 2 and can start bringing them down. So the critical piece here is be sure you plan for all 3. Don't leave one of them out. And if you do find that you are going to work longer, either because of need or just because you want to, it doesn't have to be the worst thing that ever happened. It could be the best thing. Studies have shown that people who are unproductive for long periods of time actually have higher levels of anxiety, frustration, and depression. And then finally, plan. There is no substitute. Planning is critical. Do you know the average person spends more time vacation planning than financial planning? And I think that's what we're seeing in the statistics. But I think it's critical to have a written financial and retirement plan. It's very important to have it written down. And a written financial and retirement plan is essentially looking at your net worth, your future income and expenses, and how long they're going to last you in the broadest sense of the term. A written financial plan is basically a forward-looking projection of everything financial in your life in one place. So how do you answer those questions? When can I retire? Will I have enough? A written financial plan answers that. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time is today. Well, it's the same thing here, right? The best time to get serious about retirement planning and accumulating savings was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. It's great to own our outcomes. We can do it. Thank you.